For our next video, we're going to mold and cast a model similar to our last, but this time we're going to measure our casting resin by volume rather than weight. We're also going to show you how we estimated how much material our project will require. First, we secure our model to the mold board with clay. Again, since this part has a flat bottom, we don't need to worry about parting lines. Next, we use a sharp instrument to clean up the edges of our model where our clay has been pushed out. Then we set a cup next to our model and draw a line about ½ an inch above the top of our model, and then cut along that line. This will ensure that we have at least ½ an inch of mold material on the bottom of our mold. We now have our mold box, which we secure to the mold board with clay, like we did in our previous project. Here you see our mold box ready for pouring the silicone. One question new users often ask is, how do I know how much material is needed to make a mold or fill a mold cavity? Because if we mix too much, we end up wasting material, and if we mix too little, we may ruin our mold. To provide a useful estimate of the amount of material needed, we need two pieces of information. First, we need to know the volumetric yield of the material we'll be using. This number is available on our website and is expressed in cubic inches per pound. Second, we need to know the volume of the mold or casting. This is measured in cubic inches and can be obtained by using some simple math. For rectangular box shapes, we simply multiply the length by the width by the height. For example, if your mold box is 6 inches by 5 inches by 1½ inches, the total volume would be 45 cubic inches. For cylindrical shapes, we simply multiply the radius of the circle by the radius of the circle by the height of the cylinder by 3.14. For example, if your radius is 2 inches and your height is 1½ inches, then your total volume would be 18.8 cubic inches. Once we have both the volumetric yield and the volume, we simply divide the volume by the volumetric yield. This answer gives us the total amount of material in pounds that we'll need to fill our mold box or mold. Therefore, our mixture of both parts A and B together should equal or exceed this amount. There are two additional considerations. First, if we are measuring the volume of a mold box, then we can assume that there will be a model inside which will take up some of the volume, therefore decreasing the amount of material needed. Secondly, because models and molds rarely have perfect angles or circles, we always overestimate the volume to ensure we have enough material. Once we have an estimate of how much material to use, we're ready to pour our mold box. When pouring the silicone rubber, we pour with the narrowest stream possible. This minimizes the air entrapment in the mold. We allow the silicone rubber to cure overnight. The next day, we demold our model. When demolding, we separate the clay from the mold board and then lift the entire mold. The clay and then the mold box peels off easily. After we cut off the flashing, we bend back the mold and demold our model. And here is our finished mold. We cut off the flashing on the bottom of the mold and then make sure the mold sits level on our table. Now it is time to mix and pour our HobbyCast 110 urethane. In this example, we're going to measure our two sides by volume. We can do this easily either by using cups with graduated markings on them and measuring equal amounts of each side, or we can use a ruler to mark equal heights inside two regular paper cups, and then fill each cup with one side of material. The advantage to this technique is that it doesn't require an accurate and precise scale to measure our materials. The disadvantage is that it requires you to estimate how much material you will need to mix. Once the two sides are measured, we mix them together and then pour the mixture into a third cup to ensure that all of the material is properly mixed. Then we pour our material into our mold. After an hour, we are ready to demold our part. Again, notice the incredible detail produced by the combination of HobbyMold silicone rubber and HobbyCast urethane casting resin.